Well, welcome back to another live stream from around Mijas, and I have my monthly friend here, Anna Nandith, back with us, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about, some of the things that we still don't know with regards to Brexit, because they keep coming up, Anne, don't they?
They do, yes. As they say, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Yeah.
Indeed. And your guest for this evening, we're going to talk about something more specific. Anne, would you like to
Yes,
introduce yourself?
I'd like to introduce Neil Adam, a friend of mine for many years of Funeral Care Spain. He can obviously talk about himself. He's a funeral director, obviously.
I can talk about anything.
And he will explain, because it's really, I mean, I know it's a very sensitive subject that we're going to be tackling, I know, but it's something ultimately we should all face up to. I mean, let's be realistic. It's something that's going to happen to us all. And I know you, Bill, and I have had personal experiences of death on our doorstep, so to speak, of loved ones, and myself as a friend. And it's really quite different here. If you don't speak Spanish as well, it's really more difficult. You're feeling stressed and upset and everything else. Some people prefer to go with the funeral plan, and I can understand that. They might pay a little bit more for it, but it's just one phone call and everything is done. Per the wishes of the deceased person, and it makes it a lot easier. But I mean, it feeds in nicely. I know you're going to be talking to Alex Radford, Bill, soon.
Sure. Yeah.
Wills and inheritance, and I think it feeds in quite nicely to that, because a lot of people don't realise that upon death, let's be blunt, any bank account is frozen belonging to that person, so you cannot access their money.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, "Oh, but that's
we'll
all right."
go into that in a minute.
Yeah,
it's not as cut and dried as that, but you're not far wrong. Yeah.
Exactly. No. So we can talk about it and talk about the differences, but first we'll tackle Brexit, shall we?
Okay. I was with people this morning who are still panicking that they haven't changed their driving license, and they are saying quite clearly, I know I shouldn't be driving my car with that license, but I've got no choice.
Well, their choice is going to be a massive fine if they get stopped. If they're involved in an accident, their insurance is not valid. And it can mean €6,000 fine and up to 6 months imprisonment. I wouldn't want to risk it personally, but I know it's difficult. There's people living in the campo, or that don't have public transport, that don't have school transport. They need to get to medical appointments. They need to visit family in care homes or hospitals and things, or even go for medical treatment themselves. I don't know. It's hit so many families hard. A lot of people are quite slating, to be truthful. They're really criticising. Oh, for goodness sake, you've had since 2016 to know about this. We've talked about this. What stone have you been living under since then, etc., etc. But again, it's not quite like that, because a lot of people have been unexpectedly rejected with their residency. And obviously, you couldn't exchange your driving licence unless you had a residencia. And it's just been going on and on and on. Others have been given rather wrong advice, I suppose, if I can put that in inverted commas, by so-called professionals, a gestor, even solicitors, who have said that they've registered them. They've obviously gone to Trafico to try and exchange their driving license, and they weren't registered. There's all sorts of strange things, but some people are trying to get around it. I mean, I've written an article, my June article actually, for the Cost of Connection is all about this, and I really recommend people read it, because it tells them the facts. It's not Bob in the bar, Bob the Gob that we usually have, has been very good. And he's saying you can hire a car in Spain with your UK driving license, no problem. Well, you can't. If you have a UK driving license, your UK driving license is invalid if you are a resident here. If you have a residencia, 30th of April, it ceased to be valid. Others are saying that's all right, I've got an international driving permit. Wrong. An international driving permit is not a standalone document. It has to be accompanied by a valid driving license. So again, that wouldn't be valid. There's all sorts of strange things. I mean, I don't know what the outcome is. All we can do is keep our fingers and toes crossed and hope that there is an agreement. I don't think there'll be a further extension. They gave us
what people are also saying, though, Anne, is that trying to get appointments at driving schools at the moment is like gold dust.
Absolutely.
And there's sort of 4 or 5 months wait between sort of starting this process, which obviously is not just signing up and doing your test, between now and when the test might be available. So they are talking, well, they're saying, you know, about 4 to 5 months in a lot of schools before they can even get the test done.
Yeah, I mean, the theory you can do in English, which is very kind of the Spanish to allow that. Some of the questions are a little bit iffy because I think it's been done by Google Translate. So, and there's 30 questions of which you're allowed to get 3 wrong. And I think you can have 2 attempts at it. A first attempt to fail and a second attempt without having to pay again. But without the theory, you cannot go on the road and do a practical. And I would recommend, even if you've been driving for years, you really ought to have 1 or 2 practical lessons because it's quite different. You have your driving instructor sat next to you, and the examiner is in the back, and that is all done in Spanish. So I mean, at least learn if they say turn right, don't turn left, or vice versa, or pull up behind the blue car ahead, you know, and you pull up behind the red car. I think you're likely to fail. But I mean, I don't know. For some, we've been saying it for a long time, and it really, not to be nasty, but it has been their own fault. But others, as I say, it's not all their own fault.
Yeah. And I think there were also people who were saying, oh, you know, I'll just wait because they're going to come to an agreement. They're going to come to an agreement. But actually, the ambassador, UK ambassador to Spain, Hugh Elliott, actually sent a video out just 2 weeks ago, I think, or maybe 3 weeks ago, saying, yeah, we are trying to come to an agreement, but don't sit and wait for it. Start making plans.
Yeah, he's been saying that on the last couple of videos. The last one was very late, actually, and I think that was a little bit naughty. That was the day before the invalidity of the driving license is the 29th of April, so people didn't know even then. But the time before, they've been recommending if it is imperative for you to use your vehicle here, put in for a driving test. And I mean, I don't think it's wrong that you shouldn't know the highway code in Spain because it is quite different. I mean, look at how they approach the roundabouts for one. You know, I mean, I'm sure I still do that wrong, but you know, we need to learn these things. So I don't think
the discipline's completely different on roundabouts, and a couple of my staff have actually done the Spanish driving test before all this started, and we've gone through both the theory and the practical in the course of driving to work or whatever it's going to be. And it's a lot different. It's priority on roundabout, that kind of thing. So really, if you're going for a Spanish driving license, you need to have lessons because you are going to get it wrong. If you drive an English style, you're going to get it wrong.
Does anybody know what the priority is on a roundabout? Or it's almost seemed to me like a free-for-all, you know?
It is.
On a roundabout, from my recollection, on a roundabout, it's basically the person that has priority is whoever's more than a foot in front of the other.
Oh, right, okay.
That's so even if they're on the wrong side of you, if they're in front, they got priority. Right. And that's why people feed into roundabouts without looking, because if it came down to it, they're right. It's horrible and it's frustrating, but technically they're right. If you hit them, where in the UK, the priority is always coming in from the right, isn't it? Yeah, because it's the other way around. But you can't just go there and think you're going to win because you're not. You need to do lessons and you need to do the theory.
No, you need to do it.
Let's be honest, even for those of us that have been driving for a lot of years, the thought of doing a driving test again, you know, even though we think, we're pretty competent and we know how to drive and, you know, we can do all the maneuvers and everything. It's just the thought of doing it again, isn't it?
And we speak Spanish, so you can imagine if you don't speak Spanish, it must be a nightmare. Let me just also add, there's been a lot of people that are Irish passport holders, but they have a UK driving license and they think that they are still allowed to use their driving license. They're not. It's not the nationality of the person, it's the nationality, so to speak, where the driving license was issued. So if they hold a UK driving license, that is now invalid if you are a resident here, whatever your nationality.
Right.
So, you know, I mean, register with a driving school as soon as you can. Prices are from about €400 upwards. It depends where you are, but I don't know what to say apart from hope for an agreement. But as I said before, I think Boris has got other priorities. I mean, these negotiations have been going on for nigh on 2 years. What the heck are they negotiating? Italy, Spain and Portugal, they're the ones that weren't. I mean, none of this was thought of in the withdrawal agreement. It wasn't included in the withdrawal agreement. So it was up to each EU country to then bilaterally make an agreement with the UK. And Italy, Spain and Portugal are the last 3 that haven't.
Right,
so it's unfair to say, why is Spain doing this to us? It's not Spain.
Right.
No, it's not. And if you're going to live, I'm sorry, but I am going to say, if you're going to live in the country and do the residency, you have to do just the way it is. If you choose to live in a town, whether it's Italy or whether it's Sweden or whatever, unfortunately, you have to live by the laws that are in the town or the city or the country.
Yeah, and
sadly, you can't. The English, I find the English are very good at trying to dodge something that's really in front of them. And I'm sorry, because I'm English, don't get me wrong, but there's always, well, Dave in the pub or Bob says in the pub that,
Bob in the bar.
No, that's the law. You're not special. Everyone lives under the law. And unfortunately, it's a very English thing. Sorry, but it is. That we think we've always got a way around it, or we'll be all right. Doing homework on a Tuesday night because it's got to be in on a Wednesday. That's just the way we are. Brexit was very much that. It was doing homework on the night before for something that happened the next day. There was no preparation for it. It's horrible.
No.
Anything else, Anne, before we talk specifically to Neil, anything else on the Brexit front?
Well, you and I are still challenging the padron and whether residents or non-residents should be on it. I mean, it says I've got it written down here somewhere. I think it's the bulletin, the BOE of 2020. I think it is. I've got it written down here somewhere. I can't find it now. That it's habitual residents. But what is a habitual resident? I mean, they say over 180 days. Well, if you're not here for over 180 days, then you shouldn't really be on the padron. But most councils do insist or encourage you to go on the padron. I fully understand why, because they get funding from central government, for their infrastructure, their public services and facilities. So they want the money. But you and I know that we've dealt with people that have been done because they were driving their UK plated car here, which a British resident on the padron cannot do in Spain. And they were, I mean, what was it, £3,500 fine they had with the vehicle impounded?
I think it was 2,000 euros for the import duties on the car, because they charged him import duties on his car. And then there was the impound fees on top of that, which instead of being even one night, ended up like 3, 4, 5 nights.
Exactly.
So, it was a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. And he had a return ticket to prove that he wasn't actually a resident here. I mean, it's ridiculous. But there we go. That's the way the law works, as Neil says. You know, we just need to understand what the law is and not try and dodge it all of the time.
Yeah.
Okay, just very briefly, and then I think Neil will go over and talk about the work that you're doing. People have been asking me, Anne, about signing on to the voters' roll. And, we've made the point very clear that being on the padron doesn't give you the right to vote.
No, it doesn't.
You need to sign on separately. Basically, up until Brexit, it was very easy because we used the EU citizen form and we just went in, handed it in, and that was us on. We're still waiting on confirmation for British residents. And this doesn't affect Irish residents or any European countries, only British residents. We're still waiting on the National Institute for Statistics to decide how they want us to sign on to that. According to the UK government, it's all signed and settled and there's a treaty in place and everything is fine. But according to the National Institute, which is the body that determines this, I think the words were "Nadie sabe nada." Nobody knows anything.
Nobody knows anything. Yeah, that was it. They were exactly the words we were told, Bill.
Yeah.
I know nothing. Yes, basically. Yes. So no. So the British cannot sign on the electoral register yet. And that's in time for the next May the 28th elections next year, isn't it?
It will have to be done before the end of November, because it needs to be the last signings on the voters' roll are 6 months before the election.
Yeah.
So,
and they do have to be on the padron as well. Let's make that.
Well, all the Brits that are eligible to sign on to the voters' roll should be on the padron now, because of the TIEs and whatever. So anyway.
Yeah,
and I'm going to hand this over to you and Neil, and this is a subject, as you said, nobody really likes to talk about.
No,
but unfortunately, we have to face up to this at some point.
We do, yeah. So, Neil, tell us about yourself. What exactly?
Oh, my life. That was a good intro, wasn't it? So I've lived here nearly 22 years. 10 years or so ago, I started a funeral company. So I'm a funeral director. Locally, I work on the Costa del Sol, so kind of Nerja really to Gibraltar, and then inland probably to Ronda, Casamameca kind of area. Then commercially, I'll do the whole of Spain. I'm one of the few undertakers that can actually cover the whole of Spain, and that is including the Spanish guys as well. So yeah, probably 70% of my customers, so to speak, are English. The rest are other nationalities, including Spanish. I work in both languages, and I have staff that speak other languages. So we cover Finnish, Swedish, German, French, English, Spanish, pretty much most major languages. And basically, we do the whole thing as you would expect an English undertaker to do. So a lot of people now want a personalized service. They want to do things different, like celebration of life, which is very much an English thing now, but is also catching on. I've got a lot of Spanish families that now want to do that, and I'm working in Spanish now. And consequently, because of that, I now do the vast majority of my services for both myself and the other funeral companies. So the actual physical funerals, I probably do touching 200, 220 a year.
Right.
So that's kind of a background to where I am.
Explain to us, Neil, how it differs here. I mean, the process of dying, so to speak, differs here compared to the UK. I mean, I know it's like 24 to 48 hours before you are cremated, or I presume that's...
No. Stop there. You are now Bob. You are now. I'm going to call you Bob from now on.
Well, it's not 2 or 3 weeks waiting like in the UK.
Well, there are, first of all, the 24, 48 hours. I teach funeral directing up in Madrid for one of the national companies. I teach cultural differences. So the first thing is the 24-hour rule. It doesn't exist. Nor does 48 hours. None of it. There is no law, categorically no law that says a body has to be cremated within an amount of time. None. Okay? Where this came from was nearly 30 years ago. A law was passed that insisted that within 48 hours, a body had to be put into professional care. Okay, that's it. It was just to stop abuelo keeping abuelo in the house more than 2 days. What happened is, unfortunately, the funeral companies took it upon themselves to introduce this culturally, that it's normal that if I was to die at 7:20 tonight, they would normally do the service tomorrow. It's actually illegal to do, apart from when we had COVID because we changed the rules for BOE, but it's actually illegal to do a cremation within 24 hours. Categorically illegal. Okay. So Bob in the pub, Bob Hernandez here, is completely wrong. Completely. I've had people in my custody for 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months. I can give you a list. Well, I can't because of GDPR, but there's a list that exists for bodies that have been in storage in IML in Malaga for in excess of 3 months.
Okay, now
there's no law.
Okay,
it's just it's a cultural thing.
It's tradition.
It's just what the Spanish do. So when I teach funeral directing to the Spanish guys, and I say, right, okay, in England, for instance, we will do a cremation. Well, we do the service within 2 to 3 weeks. And then afterwards, because the cremation doesn't follow on the service in the UK, common misconception, you normally get the ashes back about 2 weeks later. They are horrified because they're literally, the question is, well, what do you do for 2 weeks? But in the same way, English families or Scandinavian families are horrified that everything happens so quickly. When I first got into funeral directing, I remember a motorcycle accident when the cremation was done the same day as the accident, which is horrific. And you know, any grief counsellor will tell you that's not healthy, but that's what happens. So the first thing is, then when someone passes away, you do not have to rush categorically. You are in control. Until someone makes you sign a form to agree what you're going to do, you are in complete control. There is no way anyone can cremate a body without the permission of the next of kin. No way. Not without a judge. And then it would be 3, 4, 5 months down the line because a judge would have to do it and take responsibility. Someone has to take responsibility for it.
Yeah, you say about the cultural thing. Yes, I understand it's tradition because I've been to funerals here for Spanish people, and it's the next day or 48 hours. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think it's because they have to pay for the storage. I mean, you have to pay for the freezer storage, don't you, on top?
Yeah, but it's €60 a day. How much is a hotel?
Oh, is it? Okay. Well, I don't know how much it is.
But this is it, because again, I've heard funeral directors tell customers it's €500 a day. There are exceptional funeral directors in Spain, exceptional. Some of them are amazing. Some of them are awful human beings.
Really?
However, all you can do is either prepare yourself, organise yourself, or much like if I was going to go and buy a new car, I'd go to 3 different places. I'll get a good price. I'll get someone that I can work with, that I agree with, that understands what I want. I wouldn't go to the nearest BMW dealer and buy a BMW, because it's we're talking about on average €2,500 to €3,500 for a cremation with a service. So if you're going to spend that much money, step back a minute and have a look. And I understand if you don't speak Spanish, or if you don't have someone that doesn't that can translate for you, it's a little bit more difficult. But most funeral companies do have an English speaker these days. You've only got to ask.
Obviously, if you're British here, you're going to want family to come over.
For sure.
So that's going to delay it somewhat.
Yeah.
And then how about if you want to take the ashes back to the UK? You have to get a certificate, do you not?
It's standard. There is no funeral director that doesn't issue that as standard. Certificate of cremation goes with the ashes. It's standard. Every single crematorium.
And that's accepted on the airline.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
But as a side issue, don't tell the airline, because they will just cause trouble that doesn't exist.
Oh, really?
So you just turn up, hand luggage, to the X-ray machine, put it through, show the certificate and the death certificate, and crack on. If you book it in advance, they'll try and make you pay for a seat.
Yeah, I have heard that happen.
I always tell the families when they do a transportation like that, I always tell the families, if there's a problem either at security or at boarding, call me and I'll deal with it. And I've been called 3 times in 10 years.
Right.
So,
and I'm saying cremation is obviously far more popular than burial here in Spain for the British.
For the expats, yeah, and I'll explain why. Is more because burial in Spain is not permanent, although in the UK it's turning that way as well. So if you choose to be buried in Spain 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 49 years, up to probably, I think Manilva used to be 99, or La Linea I think is 99, and then you're out. It's rent a property. So cremation's better because you have control. You can scatter them and say, Granddad's on that mountain, you know where he is, or you can facilitate and go home and inter them at home. Burial in Spain is, believe me, if it's a religious obligation and you need to do it, it's not a problem. I completely agree. But so, for instance, my daughter's 22. Okay, she's got no kids. If I was to be interred for 50 years, my daughter might not be with us anymore. My grandkids definitely wouldn't. So I'm out. They're not going to pay my rent anymore. So, and if you explain it like that, cremation is a better option personally, because you have control of it and you can inter them or just scatter them. Although I know it's illegal, you can scatter them.
Yeah, I understood it. You're not allowed to just take them out to sea or something, are you? Again,
you can. Well, you can. There are people that can go out to sea, and we are just doing the licensing for it, and you get given a GPS point that we have to go to scatter. You can do it,
but not do it.
You really shouldn't. And I'm not going to say can't, because people do it. You really shouldn't go on a boat with Bob's Cruises, go out there and put them in the sea. You really shouldn't. It's not. One, it's not legal, and 2, it's not right.
No, it's
not
right.
If the little old lady, your grandmother, was living by the rules all her life, and you're then going to break the law putting her in the sea.
No. So tell us what happens then. So somebody dies. You tell me exactly what happens. What is the process now?
Okay. There's 2 options.
And they don't have an insurance, let's say.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's 2 options really, and a lot of this would happen regardless of the insurance. Okay. So the first option is at home or outside of a hospital, and the other one's inside of a hospital. Okay. The more complicated one is the home one. So I'll do that one first.
Okay.
So if someone passes away at home, if it's a sudden death, you have to call an ambulance. There are funeral directors that said, I'm going to do this completely eyes open. There are funeral directors that will organise certification, and it's really not good. An ambulance should be called. Okay. The ambulance driver or the medic on board will then come to the house and decide whether that death is natural, as in no outside influence, or should we say suspicious for a good word? Suspicious can mean, on average, blood spill, medication, alcohol, drugs of any kind, like whether they're recreational or whether they're normal. Not necessarily age. I've been to quite a few that have been natural causes in their 30s, and the doctor said, yeah, no problem. I've also been to deaths where the lady was 90 plus in a bed holding a book, and she obviously passed away in the evening, and they said it was unusual and wanted a post-mortem. So it comes down to the medic on the ambulance. Okay. So first thing that happens is the medical turn up. The medical will decide whether that's right or not. So worst case scenario is they're going to say that's not good. They will then call the police, polícia local. From there, it's treated. I'm going to use the word crime scene because it's the easiest way to describe it. So they have to secure the body, and they won't let anyone go near it. And the police will wait until the doctor from IML, which is the Institute of Legal Medicine in Malaga, comes and has a look. So in the depths of night, there's only one of them. They cover the whole of the Malaga province. So someone passes away at 2 o'clock in the morning, and the paramedic says it's unusual. You're in for a couple of hours wait. Okay. It's nothing personal. This is the system that protects us from the bad people on this planet. So if there's nothing to hide, I'm sorry, but you just have to wait and do it. If there's something to hide, well, quite frankly, you should be panicking. So normally then, as I said, worst case scenario is the police will call the IML doctor. The doctor will then come out, then make a judgment themselves. So this is like 2 stages down the line. If they decide that they still think it's unusual, then they will recover the body, and it will be done by a duty funeral director. I won't go into that one because it's just going to be too long. However, that funeral director is solely to work as to recover that body back to Malaga. Okay, when the body's recovered to Malaga, at the moment, there's a COVID test the next day. So, for instance, we're on Thursday today. So, if I was to drop down dead online, which would be quite interesting, tomorrow will be a COVID test, and then Saturday would be an autopsy. And it's always done before midday the second day. So there's no ifs, buts, maybes. I don't know how they do it because even in COVID, it was always the same. So they must just get extra people in accordingly. From there, providing there's nothing untoward, the body's can be released that day. However, if the family don't want to recover that body that day, it stays there and it's free. So if you've got family in the UK, the body's been post-mortems, everything's come out clear, but the family are going to take 3 or 4 days to come from the UK. With all due respect, leave them there. It doesn't cost you any money.
I mean, just to interrupt, are they sort of kept in a chapel of rest like they do in the UK, or not?
They're not. No one's kept in a chapel of rest.
It's
not in the IML is the court. So no. And to be honest with you, if you did have access to that facility, it's not really somewhere you want to go because it's a medical facility, and think CSI. When someone's autopsied, please let funeral director take care of things before you see the body. The biggest difference, and we're going to go on a lot of tangents in the next 20 minutes, but the biggest sort of difference between a UK autopsy and a Spanish one is much like the TV in America and in the UK, they do the Y-shaped incision. In Spain, they go from the chin down. So if someone's been autopsied and you view the body, you will see stitches there. So what I normally do is suggest high collars or a scarf or a polo neck just to help me disguise it. I wouldn't genuinely wouldn't view a body direct from IML, I'd let the funeral director do the preparation.
Okay.
Again, I realise I can be brutal about it, but it's the only way for people to listen and understand. Because if I'm blurry about anything that I say, people don't get it. So I'm sorry if I upset people, and I'm sorry if people think I'm being a bit brutal, but this is how it is. But while I have an opportunity to explain it explicitly, I will.
What you say until the next of kin come along. What if they don't have a next of kin? Would they be put in a pauper's grave or something? Who would pay for the funeral or the cremation ultimately?
Okay. If there is no next of kin, as in, and I don't mean estranged, because estranged is still next of kin, and I'm involved in one of those at the moment, so don't start me. If there's genuinely no next of kin, no husband, no wife, no children, no relatives, no aunts, no uncles, no one that the consulate can find, then eventually they will go on the list I was talking about earlier, and eventually the town hall of that particular area, so if they pass away in Fuengirola or pass away in Marbella, the town hall from that area will take responsibility and just perform a cremation. It's not burial, it's always a cremation.
Okay, and it wouldn't be for anybody to be invited to if they were friends or anything, it would just happen?
No, because if they were friends and other people, then that would imply that they were next of kin. So they would not normally allow that to happen. I understand what you're saying, but effectively you're saying that no one wants to pay for the service, no one wants to get involved.
Okay.
So they do not do a funeral service, it's just a physical cremation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to go back to, because it's a valid point what you're saying, because people are on their uppers at the moment, and people are having a hard time. So normally when people are struggling for money, they go for two options. One is medical donation, and the other one is effectively what we would call a pauper's funeral. Okay, pauper's funerals, if someone passes away and the family have no money, so let's say a husband and wife, no kids, living literally hand to mouth, and the husband passes away at home. If it's at hospital, it's a lot easier. If they pass away at home, then you have to call the police, and the police have to deal with it. It's not for a funeral director to get involved.
Okay.
What then happens is the police will instruct a funeral director, the body will be recovered for safekeeping because it has to be, and then the town hall will get involved on the next working day and investigate to see if that person has any asset, has any income, has any asset in the UK, contact the consulate. They have to prove that there is no money to pay.
Okay.
If that's proved, then they will go ahead and do what we will say a pauper's funeral, which will be effectively a beneficiary cremation. However, if a family member hides or doesn't take the phone call or says I don't want to pay, trust me, you will end up paying eventually. The town hall will locate you and they will charge you eventually. So if you are next of kin and you have the money to pay for it, please, even if it's a basic service, just do it. Otherwise, the town hall will find you eventually and charge you plus interest. So it's better to address it when you can. Pauper's funerals are for people that do not have any money and have no relatives.
Okay. You said about this medical, I can't think what the term was you used. Are you referring to donating your body to science?
Medical science, you can. You can't do it at the time of death. You can register. There's loads of websites you can register on. There's a specific one for Andalusia, which I can't recall right now, but I can post a link for it. You can register in advance. However, as you can imagine, there are a lot of applicants for this. And also, I will hasten to add that I saw a post on Facebook the other day, and it was completely wrong, but I just didn't want to engage with it. They actually want pretty much perfect bodies. So, natural causes, no diseases, nothing contagious, no bruising, no bed sores, no cancerous tumours, no car accidents. It has to be pretty much a perfect body. So someone was saying, oh no, they want contagious bodies because it's experimentation. No, they don't. They have literally, and excuse the phrasing, they have the pick of the crop. They will go for the best option they've got to then give to the students to study. Having a body that's not intact or whatever, it's not going to work.
Is it not the same as in the UK? If we've lived through that mad cow disease for, I can't think what the years are, we can't donate our bodies to science, can we? if I recall correctly.
There's a lot. That's blood donation.
Right.
So you can't donate blood if you're involved in CJD. CJD still exists. Okay, I see CJD deaths not on a regular basis, but enough. And they exist here. It's not just the UK thing; they exist. But then so does everything else. Tuberculosis exists. SARS exists. Bird flu exists. H1N1, whatever you want to call it. Swine flu exists. They all exist.
Yeah.
But the body will have to be perfect. And then when you want to register for that and you pass away, they then send a doctor to have a look. And then the doctor will then decide whether they're going to recover. And then they have 24 hours to refuse. So they could recover. Then the committee will look and say no and send the body back.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, I know. But so it's always good to have not a funeral plan, but just a plan. Just an idea of what you're going to do. Living wills.
That's terribly stressful for the deceased family, isn't it? I mean, that's awful. That must be horrible. That's like going through it twice, for goodness sake.
Yeah. And like I said, I try to do eyes wide open on everything. Okay. So if you believe me, my father wants to donate to medical science. He lives in the UK. But, it's not as simple as come get in. No. It's not. And it's not in the UK and it's not in Spain and it's not. It's the same situation worldwide. It's just that this is the only point we're talking about this subject.
Yeah.
We don't know the ins and outs of it. I don't know the ins and outs of Brexit right now because I'm not up to date. I don't ask the questions. Where you guys are professionals, but with all due respect, you don't know the ins and outs of it anyway because they're making up as they go along.
They don't know it themselves.
But yeah. So anyway, so if the body's autopsied, you can then leave the body there as long as it takes for you to get organised, pay the funeral director or organise a funeral director, and then proceed with the service.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Something that I know, and my aunt had this. That it was her wish. Let's say was a do-it-yourself funeral in like a cardboard cask, a cardboard coffin. It doesn't exist in Spain, does it?
Cardboard's illegal. Wicker is illegal. Despite what some of the plan providers will say, they are both illegal. The point of law is
illegal.
The point of law is that the body must be transported in a hermetically sealed box. So, unfortunately, although I could go into the ins and outs of how they construct some of these things, they only recognise a casket of a nature. So it has to be a box and not cardboard. It's only going to be a coffin right now. Whether they change that in the future, I don't know. There are movements, and I'm not the only one shouting and screaming to the authorities because I know another FD that's doing the same thing. They actually make wicker caskets in Barcelona, but they don't use them here. And it's not going to change anytime soon. So anyone that tries to sell you a funeral plan on the basis of you're going to get a wicker casket, it's eco-friendly, and no, they're lying to you.
I mean, it does seem a little bit of a waste. I don't wish to be disrespectful to pay for this very expensive mahogany coffin that's just going to be burnt. It just seems a little bit.
But why I genuinely, when with the services I do, I cannot remember the last time I moved off a basic coffin because they're going to be cremated. I don't upsell. What's the point? You get with respect, it's the same as the flowers. You're going to see them for half an hour. So why? My basic coffin is better looking than the one that's 300 quid more.
Yeah, no, that's the point.
So
what happens to the flowers? Are they given to the mourners? You take them away with you? I
always ask at the end of our services whether the family want to take them, and I would suggest that they do. Some chapels retain them for the church, for the crematorium until they go a bit wilted. Some chapels retain them providing the family don't want them, and put them on graves that kind of need flowers. So then they're very rarely wasted. Some people think that it might be a good idea to take to Kudeka. With respect, unless it's a ram or unless it's a bouquet, they don't want it because the last thing someone like Kudeka wants is a reminder of an impending funeral. So if you intend to try and donate something like that to Kudeka or wherever it may be, like a hospice or a care home, don't give them the centre from the coffin because it just reminds of what just happened. Organise it so that you break it down, take it in a vase, whatever it's going to be, that's fine. But please don't rock up. It's just not right.
Okay. Right, so back to if the death occurs in a hospital, you said it's quite different.
Okay, if the death occurs in a hospital, so for instance, Costa del Sol is run by a funeral director. The mortuary is run by a funeral director. So these are the times that you have to be prepared for the hard sell, because they will approach you. It's in their interest. They pay for the tender. They will try and sell you a funeral. There are other funeral directors. Yeah, this is National Health, obviously. So with the hospitals, the best thing to do is give them the information they require and leave. Because the minute you sign something, you're engaged. They've got that little hook. You're done. Yeah. So if someone passes away in a National Health hospital, I would suggest that they will need a copy of the passport or the TIE, because they have to register the death and they have to prove who that person is. The doctor has to see it. After that, you're done. And frankly, if you get in a position where you're not happy with what's going on, leave. Because there's nothing that I can do all of that. Another funeral director can do all of that. You do not have to stand there and take that. There are situations, so for instance, in clinical at the weekends, they ran out of room. Sorry, but it does happen. So the mortuary asked me to take someone away almost immediately. I wasn't happy about it, and I expressed my displeasure at it, but I understand what they're doing. Private hospitals don't normally have mortuaries, so they want the bodies recovered immediately. And they will obviously, so the likes of, who should we say, Quirón in Marbella have a relationship with the funeral director. So the funeral director will turn up before the doctor turns up. And it's sad, but that's the point. So if someone passes away, if you're in a hospital environment and you know someone's in palliative care or highly likely they're going to pass away, investigate the funeral director, give the details, and tell the staff that's it. Otherwise, you will end up caught in the system, and then you can end up with big bills and unpleasant situations of being hurried to a cremation the next day, which is not what you want.
No,
because you have the right to choose. Everyone who's watching this has the right to choose what happens to their loved one in this instance. No one can do anything without the signature of a family member. So if you're sitting in Quirón or whatever it's going to be, providing you don't sign anything, they cannot move them. You have to give permission. You are in control.
I think things are much easier now, Neil. My wife passed away 14 years ago. I didn't even have internet in the house. I didn't have a smartphone. And I had to just, I was pretty ignorant about everything. And I went down the route that you described with the funeral director that was based in the hospital. I'm not going to say anything about that, but let's just say if I had access to more information as you're giving us now, I may have done things differently. But 14 years ago, as I say, I didn't have a phone line.
Completely.
I didn't have internet.
And it's your right. The overriding thing from everything I'm going to say tonight is that the family have the right to choose. And as in a hospital environment, apart from the very rare cases, as per se the other day, most hospitals are prepared, or should, National Health should look after the body until the family are ready. Because you pay your taxes, you pay your social, they are obliged. So Costa del Sol, if someone passes in Costa del Sol and you say, right, I'm going to go and phone a funeral director and they'll be in contact, they're obliged to look after that person until you're ready.
Right.
That's what you pay your taxes for. You pay for the hospital, you pay for the right to use it. Sometimes it goes a little bit pear-shaped. As I said, in COVID, sometimes it got a bit tight with space. But even with that, they were saying, look, guys, can you please move this person within a couple of days? Yeah, fine. There's enough time for the family to prepare and organise stuff. Don't get bullied.
Yeah.
It's very closely related to Brexit, really, isn't it? I mean, to fail to prepare is to prepare to fail, basically. And there's so many people voted because they didn't understand. The same as because they didn't have the information or they had wrong information. Exactly the same as you're telling us now. As Bill saying, if he had this information 13 years ago, he might have done things differently.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, there are some, as I said before, some amazing funeral directors. I could name at least 4 or 5 off the top of my head. Amazing guys. They completely understand it. They will look after you. They'll give a reasonable price. But unfortunately, it's just as easy to, same as good builders, bad builders, same as good pet beauticians, bad pet beauticians. You've got to, don't be afraid to ask the questions of anyone. So if someone's sitting in front of you and you're talking about a funeral and you say, well, how much is a coffin? If they can't tell you instantly, they're not your friend. Because I know my prices. I know how much a cremation is. I know how much chapel of rest is. I know how much cars cost. I know all of it because it's what I do for a living. If someone says I need to call my boss, move on. Because and in the same way, if you're unsure of costing, so for instance, Fuengirola, you can go online to Fuengirola. You can type in Tarifa Cementerio Fuengirola, and the tariff's there online, so you can see what it costs the funeral director, because they're settled they're agreed costs as part of the franchise, they're part of the system. So Belladonna is the same, Estepona is the same, San Pedro is the same. You can find all this stuff online if you look now. So I can't tell you that a cremation in Belladonna costs you 3,000 euros when you know full well it's 700. So you can investigate. So just take a step back.
I know it's quite different for the Spanish because they don't have the hymns and the prayers and things like that and dedications, but we tend to prefer that, don't we? That's something, I suppose, traditionally that we do. So if you'd prepared that in advance, then you would know what you were doing. Do you not think?
I'm disconnected somewhere there.
Right. The Spanish don't sing hymns and they don't make dedications and things like that. It's just very straightforward. This is it. This is it. I mean, they have done it before, but it's very much traditional.
I think, with respect, I think it's a bit of a sweeping statement, but invariably the Spanish have a system that it goes into. So it is kind of just trying to think if I've got one here. I haven't got one here. I've done 3 services today and I haven't got the paperwork with me. It's very common for a Catholic priest to walk into a service with no knowledge of the person or the family. They just get given a piece of paper with the name, the next of kin, the date of death, and then they just do the service.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So they can't.
And they get paid 90 euros. So if you're going to pay 90 euros, you're going to get that.
So they can't.
Whereas the English tend to do Whereas myself and other people that do what I do as a celebrant, it's the next outside of that, my normal funeral directing box, would normally meet the family, do at least half an hour interview, encourage the family to write the eulogy, and then personalise the service. But that's kind of, again, more and more Spanish families are cottoning on to what we do, and more Spanish services are coming to me now, which is really interesting and really cool. I like to think that we're opening a door to something new.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we move on to the next point, and I know we're going to be running out of time, you said about banks and the freezing of bank accounts upon death. What happens there? Right.
Simply, if the account is in joint names, and for instance, there's 10,000 euros in it, then when the bank are made aware of the death, i.e., they have to be shown a certificate of defunction, a death certificate. If it's in joint names and there's 10,000 euros in it, they will freeze 5,000 euros. They don't freeze a whole account. If the person is a sole signatory, they will freeze a whole account. If there's 10,000 euros in the account, they're frozen 5, and a standing order for your community fees goes out at 100 euros. 50 goes from one half and 50 goes from the other half. That's the way it should happen. Okay, it actually, when you explain it carefully, it makes a lot of sense. Until such time that the probate's gone through and you can prove that money is going to you or the kids or whatever it's going to be, the bank will do that. And then when you do the probate, or when you explain to the bank or show the manager to their satisfaction, they will release the funds. So again, this now comes to pre-planning, because the amount of people that, sorry Bill to talk over you, but the main frustration I have with all of this is people don't make wills, and it's just a world of hate. Please go to the notary, spend 150 euros, don't get to the solicitor, just go to the notary. Just do something, because if you don't, it will just be an absolute nightmare for your family. It's just that one thing you have to do. if all you do is take away from this whole thing that we've done, go to the notary and make a will, perfect, I'm good.
And if you're British, you can make it as per the British law or English law, can't you?
Yeah. Even with the Brexit thing, that you can still do that. They've not rescinded that.
Yeah. Just on a last point, unless there's anything else I wanted to add. You mentioned pet cremations.
Yeah.
I'm sentient beings, and we're very much animal lovers.
Yeah, I mean, because I had a bit of a rough time a couple of years ago, and I lost 5 dogs in probably 12, 13 months. So I've since opened pet cremations. But as animal lovers, listen, there's going to be some people watching this and go, "You're crazy." As animal lovers, we are funeral directors for pets. We don't use the same vehicles. We don't use the same equipment. We don't use the same facilities. It's completely separate. But it's quite comforting that if you're in an unfortunate situation where your animal's being put to sleep at home, it's quite nice that a funeral director turns up and does the recovery and takes the body on to the crematorium. And if you want to view your dog, your cat before the cremation, you can. If you want to do a service, we will. The pet cremation, that market in the United States is massive because they've already got into it, and it's at its complete infancy here. So yeah, and it's, again, I actually find the services for pets a lot harder than the services for humans every time. But we in the same way we're talking about the mortuaries being run by funeral directors, every vet has got a pet funeral crematorium, so they will always encourage you to use theirs. I am kind of the next level. I am an independent pet funeral director as well. So if you want me to go to the vets and stand outside the door in a suit until you're ready for me to take Fido, then I'll do that. If you want me to come to your house and pick Fido up, I'll do that. It's a very new concept, but very, very needed, and it gives people closure that normally you wouldn't get. It, most of my customers on the pet cremation side are on the phone saying, "I don't want my dog to be in a freezer. I want to, I want to do the injection, or going to wake up and they're still in their bed in the morning. They want me to come and look after that body and do the cremation the same day," which is what I do. If the body stays with the vet, invariably they go in the freezer. They're picked up once a week, and they end up down that line. We do a personal service with certificate of cremation as well.
Well done. Good. Anything else we need to add, Bill? Anything?
No, listen, I think this has been a very nice sort of explanation, and I think a very practical explanation, Neil, of how things work and why things work the way they do.
It's a huge subject, unfortunately, and even in condensed form, it takes at least an hour and a half just to get through the basics. But people can send me questions. We could do this again. We can whatever. But more knowledge is power with everything.
I put your website and your phone number on the ticker at the bottom there, so people know where to look, at least on the internet. But I think it's very good to bring this subject out into the open, rather than just waiting for a point where people are distressed and panicking and don't know what to do. And Helen has just put a comment up there. It's very helpful. Thank you to everyone. Thank you thank you for joining us, Neil.
No worries, thank you.
Really, I think I'm saying practical because that's the very thing that people are not often when someone dies or dies suddenly. Dealing with practicalities is the bit that they struggle with, isn't it?
I will shortly add to regardless of whether you've got a plan provider, regardless whether you've got an insurance, regardless of anything, if someone dies and you don't know what to do, just phone me. I'll tell you what to do. I don't want to work, although maybe I will, but I'm not going to lie. But I will just help, because people don't do that anymore. All I'll do is help. I'll tell you what to do. I'll tell you what not to do. I don't want to work. I just want to help.
Okay.
Thank you.
Neil, Anne, we're going to
Thank
have
you.
to say good night. We've run longer, but only because I think it's been really useful information that's coming out here. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm glad you've got internet in your house, Anne.
Thank you. Yeah, and it
It's going to
worked.
transform your life. The profits are going to go down at the bar, aren't they? The local bar.
Exactly. It's getting a bit busy down there now as well, so it would be too noisy. Yeah.
So Neil, thank you so much. We'll put
Pleasure.
your number there. People want to contact you if
No
you
problem
need
at all.
information or your services. You know,
Yeah,
it's all
it's
there.
fine.
Thank you very much. Next
Thanks,
week,
Neil.
Mario Bravo will be joining me to
Good.
discuss the the processes of the council meeting for May. So that might be interesting. Thank you,
Indeed.
everyone. Thanks for those
Thank
who
you,
have
Bill.
joined in, those who have commented, and we'll be back next week. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
so
Thank
much.
people.
you.
Have a great
Take
weekend.
care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Thank you.